Welcome back. This is Lesson 6, an Introduction to Curriculum Instruction for Gifted and Talented Students. We're going to continue working through Weinbrenner's book and talking about some strategies that are very practical that you can begin to use in your classroom, even tomorrow. This, by now, should be branded on your heart and mind, the ideas of differentiating. And if you look through this, you should be able to be a teacher leader in your building, actually, for this very idea of differentiation. There are a lot of things out there where people say they're differentiating, but maybe they're not doing that in the pure sense of the word. And so this is just a really strong research-based guided focus for us to keep track of. And so if you become the expert in this area in your building, you would be a great help and a resource and a teacher leader for those who would like to differentiate. This is the book that we're continuing in, Susan Weinbrenner's book, Teaching Gifted Kids in Today's Classroom. By now, you've understood a lot of the strategies that she recommends and that you're working on your own tasks that have been assigned to you in Blackboard, and continue to just really build that tool belt that you need in order to be a great teacher for our gifted learners. Today we're going to talk about planning curriculum for all your students at the same time. You know, I go back and think about that three-ring circus quite frequently, and the idea that it's not individualized instruction, but it's just reaching out and looking at your groupings in your classroom in three ways. Teach the way that they learn. Kenneth Dunn says, if they can't learn the way we teach them, we must teach them the way they learn. Pretty powerful. Various models of thinking taxonomies described in this book can help you create more rigorous learning activities for your gifted students. When teaching a thinking strategy to students, first you're going to use simple content so they can concentrate on the strategy, and then use the same strategy when you're required standards that you need to teach. So what this means, and I've seen this play out, is that you would really like to use a strategy in your classroom. Let's say you'd like to use the jigsaw method in your classroom. And in order to do that well, Weinbrenner suggests that you use very simple content to teach that strategy, because your focus is to teach the strategy. And then once the strategy is learned, next time when you use it, you can use strong content and they already understand the management of the strategy. So I use this a lot. You know, I teach undergraduates how to teach in the schools. And so in order for them to understand how to teach a strategy, I make it very user-friendly for them. When we study rubrics and some strategies involved with that, we bring out cookies. And in the cookies, we have a rubric and we judge the cookies, different varieties of cookies, because I want them to focus on the strategies and not the content. So keep it simple at first. Whatever strategy you use, in order to get them to understand it, don't muck up the waters and complicate the strategy with really hard content, because they'll get confused and they'll be asking lots of questions. Keep it simple, teach the strategy, and then the next time you use the strategy and you bring it out, they'll be all about it because they understand it, and you can use strong content with it. You can use the tiered lesson planning chart in the book to differentiate required standards for all your students simultaneously. And if you remember, there's a chart in there as well that I provided for you, how to tier a lesson. Same standard, but then the levels of complexity, those three levels again, are going to be different based on what students need. There's also something called Think Tricks model that they've used, the strategy, in this book. It's another method you can use to differentiate standards for all your students simultaneously. And it's going to encourage more learning with more rigor. And you'll see that word rigor used a lot when we're talking about gifted curriculum. So it's really a way to kind of cue thinking. And a lot of this can be used in practical ways in the classroom. The Think Tricks chart, and let me pull this up a little more so you can see it a little bit better. I think that's a little bit better. There are visual cues that go along with the Think Tricks model. And I have used this with young students all the way through college. And basically, when they see the letter R, and I have laminated these and placed these in my classroom, that means that that level is simple recall. And that should sound familiar to you because you'll see a lot of bloom in this idea of the Think Tricks model. And in that model, you're asking them to think about recall and just sequencing, summarizing. And then the next visual cue that you give them, and this can be done in any order, is it looks like a Venn diagram, but they shade the middle. And in the middle, those are things that are similar about whatever the topic is. The next one are differences. So it's the Venn diagram again, but notice that they shaded the outside circles. The next cue, visual cue, is a cause and effect. So when they see this cue, this is great for our gifted learners. They must look at the questions and the ideas in the form of cause and effect. The next one is an idea to an example. Now, what does that really mean? It means that they're able to use an analogy, use support. So if I said, the idea today is courage, can anyone give me an example of courage? And so then the student would have to provide examples of that big idea. So the next cue is actually the opposite of what I just said, examples to big ideas. So let's say I started saying a firefighter who runs into a burning building, a student who's giving their first speech in front of a crowd. I'm giving them examples of what I hope that they will translate into the big idea, which is the idea of courage. You know, I've used this before in a classroom where we took on the topic from William and Mary units about change. And we used that idea throughout the year for all of the different things that we studied. It was kind of that filter. The final visual cue that you can help students with is this idea of evaluation, where we see here an opportunity for them to make a judgment call, for them to think through ethical situations, which we know that gifted students think deeply about. So this is what the chart's meaning is. But let's see kind of some examples of this. So an example of, and I'm just going to cover all of them and we can talk through them. We're just looking at something simple because when I'm teaching a strategy, remember, we want to keep the content simple so we understand the strategy. So our simple recall question would be, how many stars on the American flag? Then moving up to the next one was the Venn diagram where we want to do something similar. How is the American flag similar to the dollar bill? The next question, differences. How is the American flag different from the dollar bill? Cause and effect. Why do nations have symbols? When you see the American flag, what are you thinking or feeling? Idea to an example, name 2 other American symbols. Example to idea would be the American flag and the dollar bill are examples of. And then evaluation, is the American flag a good symbol? Give these reasons. Now, a gifted student, over time, who understands these strategies, can actually create wonderful questions to go with these examples. I've actually let them before design tests for us to help us work our way through problem solving. I've used a beach ball for this and put the symbols on the different sides of the colors of the beach ball, and I toss it at a student, and wherever they catch it and wherever their right thumb lands, that is the visual cue of the kind of question they need to ask pertaining to what it is we're studying. I've used a lot when we're doing novel studies and other things, and they have to create a deeper level thinking question Then simple recall. Yes, they might land on simple recall, but we don't want to keep our students there. We don't want to camp out there. That is not a good place to pitch a tent. We want to move up the levels of thinking. And so this is just a really great strategy that I've used many times, and it can cross curricular for all kinds of opportunities for our gifted students to think deeply about topics. Here's another one. Once again, kind of simple content because we're trying to get you to understand the strategy. I've included these on Blackboard for you so you can kind of look through them. I would suggest giving it a try yourself, and if you laminate these cue systems in your classroom, it's a good reminder. I've even actually used these cueing systems on my test. Like I'll make sections of my assessment, and one section I'll use the R for recall, and then it forces me to do the right thing by students and move them up the higher levels of thinking. And so there'll be a section on idea to example and evaluation and other things. Evaluation oftentimes lends itself to really strong essay type of answers for students. Here is a blank worksheet that you will find in Weinbrenner's on her website that you could download, and then you could manipulate and put in what you need that would be most effective for your students. Learning centers, that's another great strategy to use with gifted learners. Sometimes we call them learning stations, but they provide opportunities for whole class differentiation while allowing students to move around as they learn and make choices. I think you're pretty familiar with these. The Socratic seminars, great method. I have uploaded a video for you to watch on Blackboard that will be something that if you're not familiar with a Socratic seminar, you would want to investigate, because this is a really strong strategy to use with our gifted learners. There are seminars that give students experience in all types of higher level thinking and speaking. All the thinking models presented in this book can be used separately or in combination, and it helps with these challenging questions for the seminars, so students are prepared when they come to meeting. Once again, just thank you for your time, and we'll continue this journey together on teaching gifted learners and curriculum that's just really strong for all of them. Thank you.